Governor, you heard some of the language that Mr. Trump used over the weekend. What do you think of this idea of, quote, we have some sick people, radical left lunatics, and I think it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, the National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military. Is that something that you support?
Jake, first of all, thank you for having me. And I guess what I want to just make very clear is that it's my belief that what former President Trump is talking about are the people that are coming over the border, that in fact are committing crimes, that are bringing drugs, that are trafficking humans, and that are turning every state into a border state. And I'm a governor of a state that is not near the southern border, and yet I see the impacts of 10 million people illegally coming across the border every single day. 5 Virginians die on average from fentanyl overdose. We have folks that have crashed, the illegal immigrants that have crashed the front gate at Quantico in a box truck, trying to gain access to Quantico. And we've had Virginians who have been subjected to sexual assaults by Venezuelan gang members. So to say that this isn't happening, Jake, is just not fair to Americans. And so it is happening.
I'm not saying that at all. Obviously, there is a border crisis. Obviously, there are too many criminals who should not be in this country, and they should be jailed and deported completely. But that's not what I'm talking about, because he was talking about sick people, radical left lunatics who should be handled by the National Guard or the military. And then later on in that same speech, he said that one of the lunatics he addressed was Congressman Adam Schiff. That's who he was talking about using the National Guard and military against, radical left lunatics, enemy from within, people like Adam Schiff.
Again, Jake, I don't think that and again, I can't,
I'm just reading
I can't speak
quotes
for him. But I do think that you are misinterpreting and misrepresenting his thoughts. I do believe, again, it's all around the fact that we have had an unprecedented number of illegal immigrants come over the border in an unconstrained, unrestrained fashion. The Biden-Harris administration has allowed it to happen. It was their policies. They did not fix it. And as a result, we do see a substantial number of folks that are violent criminals, folks who have been identified as national security threats here. And in fact, just 2 weeks ago, we in fact had senior people from our national security apparatus say that there's 15,000 violent felons in the United States. They have no idea where they are. That is what I believe the president is referring to. I don't think that he's referring to elected people in America. But I'm
literally reading his quotes. I'm literally reading his quotes to you. And I played them earlier so you could hear that they were not made up by me. He's literally talking about, quote, radical left lunatics. And then one of those lunatics he addressed, he mentioned, was Congressman Adam Schiff. Criminals should be locked up. Migrants who are in this country illegally, who are violent, should be locked up and deported. I grant you all of that, and I am not denying that it's happening at all. But I'm talking about Donald Trump saying that he wants to use the National Guard and the military to go after the left. That's what he's saying.
I don't believe that's what he's saying. But listen, you and I are going to argue about that. But I would suggest if you would also.
I played the quote and I read it to you.
If you would also
you
balance
can wish that he weren't saying that, but that's what he's saying.
Jake, all the time people are taking little snippets of content and turning it into a big narrative. I think exactly what he's concerned about, because I've heard him express it before, are the number of national security risks, violent criminals, and folks who are coming into this country where we don't know where they are, that are committing crimes and put people's safety at risk. And I do think that on the same balance, I think you should cover the fact that over the course of the last 3.5 years, there has been an unprecedented and unrestrained flow across our border, and it has put Americans' lives and so much of our livelihood at jeopardy. And I think that's a very important, clear reality that we have to face. You know, one of the things that's happened in Virginia is that on Friday, the Justice Department sued Virginia for simply doing a very basic constitutionally.
Let me ask you about that.
Constitutionally authorized step, which is to make sure that non-citizens aren't on our voter roll.
Yeah, let me ask you about that, because I want to bring, because people might not be aware of it, so I want to give it. But before I do that, I just want to note, I was just reading you his quotes, and he was not talking about dangerous migrants in those quotes. Later, there were other quotes about those migrants, and he was saying that people shouldn't even, children shouldn't even be sending their kids to school with the kids of migrants. But you don't want to accept those quotes. Let's move on to this other thing because this is important. The Justice Department is suing your state's election officials, alleging that you're violating federal law because you were purging voters that were flagged as potential non-citizens. Now, the issue is not the program, is my understanding. The issue is that the Commonwealth of Virginia was doing it within 90 days of an election. As you know, and I just want to bring the viewers up to speed here, that's the so-called quiet period before an election, 90 days where you're not supposed to be doing such purging. What is your response to this lawsuit?
Yeah, so let me just begin with just correcting a few of the facts that you used to set this up. So first and foremost, this is a law that's been on our books since 2006. It was a law that was signed by then Democrat Governor Tim Kaine, and it requires our election process and governors to use DMV data when an individual self-identifies as a non-citizen and there is a match with that person on the voter rolls, to then notify that person that they have 14 days to affirm that they're a citizen or not, and if they're not, then they are removed. This process has been in place since 2006. We've just had recent Democrat governors like Terry McAuliffe and Ralph Northam use this exact same process within the 90-day period because it is individualized. An individual starts the process by self-identifying as a non-citizen, and therefore as governor, I have an obligation, no discretion, to then run the process to notify that person through our registrar that they have 14 days to clear it up. And if they don't clear it up, they're going to be removed from the voter rolls. The big question I have is, given the clarity of the constitutionality of what I just described, both at the federal level and the state level, and laws at the federal level and the state level that not only require me to do this, but are focused on the fact that these are individual steps that start with someone identifying as a non-citizen, why is it that anyone could argue that a process that removes non-citizens off of our voter rolls is anything else other than common sense and constitutional? And that's my frustration with this whole process, which is it started 25 days before a presidential election. They could have started it a long time ago. We would have sorted this out because I firmly believe they are wrong. But this seems far more political than otherwise, simply because of the fact this has been going on since 2006, according to law, and they chose 25 days before an election in Virginia in order to assert something which really is inconsistent with the process that we're doing.
So obviously, what you're saying is completely correct. This was a Democratic governor, then Governor, now Senator Tim Kaine, who signed into law. And obviously, every state and Commonwealth has an interest in making sure that the only people who vote are American citizens who have the right to vote. I don't challenge any of that. I think what the Justice Department is saying is that this took place within 90 days. Now, you're suggesting that under Democratic governors, they've used it within the 90 days period as well. Let me ask you, how many people have been removed from voter rolls or rather notified by your administration?
A little over 6,300 instances where someone walked into a DMV, identified as a non-citizen, and then were on the voter rolls. There was a match, and then they were notified that they have 14 days to either affirm they're a citizen or their name will be removed. And then on top of that, they receive a second notice saying that that's happened. And then finally in Virginia, because we have same-day registration and voting, if they still are a U.S. citizen, they can show up and register a day of voting. And so 6,300 people, 6,300 instances ended up with someone being notified this way. And I just firmly believe that the idea that non-citizens have to be kept on the voter roll, even when we know they're not there, is inconsistent with the Constitution, the state constitution, federal law, and state law. And this is not something that is new and different. It's been going on for a long time in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and as governor, I have to do it.
So again, let me posit that no non-citizen should be voting, period. 6,300 is a lot.
Yeah.
And I guess the reason, so for people out there who don't understand, the reason why this quiet period was put into law under the federal law is because these purging programs, I'm not singling out Virginia's, but in general, purging programs are error-filled. And sometimes people who were not citizens, who have since gotten their citizenship, are mistakenly taken off the rolls. Sometimes it's just the same name. Sometimes the government just screws up. And so that's the reason for the 90-day period. Why not just honor that 90-day period?
Well, let me just first begin. It's anything but a purging program. It begins with someone identifying themselves as a non-citizen. And I guess I would posit back to you, do you think that non-citizens, when they've self-identified as a non-citizen, should stay on the voter roll and therefore be in a position to potentially vote in a presidential election?
I don't think any non-citizen should vote. How are they self-identifying? How does that happen?
They actually tick a box that says, I am a non-citizen, or they do not answer the question that they are a citizen, and therefore they self-identify that they are not a citizen in the United States of America. And this is why this is so out of bounds in my mind from the Justice Department. They fully understand this. They understand the process starts with a person self-identifying as a non-citizen, and then there is a match with that person's name on the voter rolls, and they are given not just one, but up to 3 times in order to try to cure it. And this is why I find this to be a very, very unreal moment that is stunning, that they filed this suit 25 days before a presidential election, when in fact this has been going on in accordance with our Constitution, the federal Constitution, and state law since 2006.
I guess the only thing I would say is, and I'm not here to represent the Justice Department, but 6,300 people is a lot. I don't know that every time everybody checks a box, they know what they're checking. I think a lot of people mess up when they check boxes. And there is this federal law of 90 days, and I just wonder, when you knew this was going on, did you not know that the law was you can't do this within 90 days of an election, or was it just it was just rolling and nobody even thought about it?
No, it actually doesn't contravene the federal law at all. And in fact, because it is done on an individualized basis, person by person, and because that person has in fact self-identified as a non-citizen, this is not subject to the 90-day blackout period, in my view, and in counsel's advice. And that is the inconsistency in what the Justice Department is asserting. It is individualized. It is not systematic. It is individualized. That a person by name says, I am not a citizen, and therefore I probably shouldn't be on the voter roll, but my name got there either by mistake or by purpose. But either way, we shouldn't allow people to be on the voter roll when they have identified as a non-citizen to be there. And I will reiterate yet again, there are multiple fail-safes in this system that has been used and has not been challenged literally for 18 years. And that's why I find this to be such a disturbing moment. We will continue to have safe and secure elections in Virginia. Listen, that's my job as governor. We have paper ballots. We have counting machines, not voting machines. We have great ballot custody laws. We, in fact, monitor all the drop boxes 24/7. They're in secure places. And we make sure that we have really clean election rolls. And I think that's what a governor is supposed to do. And I'm compelled to abide by our law and the Constitution to do exactly that.
Well, I think we just got at the crux of the matter, which is you think that because they self-identified that means the 90-day period federal law doesn't apply, and that's what you think. You said in your opinion, and your counsel and the Justice Department disagrees, and I guess a judge will decide which one of you is correct, but we appreciate you coming on the show. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, thank you so much.
And Jake, one last thing.
Yes, sir.
Whether we're in Virginia or any other state, I just want to go back and reiterate that non-citizens should not be on the voter roll. And when we know they're non-citizens or suspect they're non-citizens, we should have a process for checking that. And if they are citizens, they should be allowed to vote. Every citizen should be encouraged and allowed to vote. But we should not have a system that restricts a person-by-person process of reacting to a self-declared moment of being a non-citizen and not going through a process of potentially removing them from the voter roll if they can't affirm otherwise. This is common sense.
Only citizens should vote. Only citizens should vote. Governor Youngkin, always good to have you on. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Jake.